I had an inspiration today just to talk about sacred space, how to create one. When I was first starting my practice, that my teacher told me that I should pick a place in my room if that's all I had, or have a special room if that was available to me. If I couldn't find a special place in the room or a special room to have a single chair that I would always and only use for my spiritual practice, for my meditation. And she mentioned that in doing that, it kind of trains the mind to associate that space with solitude, with tranquility, with the divine, so that it becomes an added help when you would sit in that chair or enter that space, that the mind would automatically go to the feet of the beloved, in the case of my devotional practice, but certainly to go to that tranquility, that inner space through repetition and association. She also mentioned that it was good to have an incense, that I would burn each time, so that there would be that added emphasis, and also to do it at exactly the same time every day. Whether it was 2 or 3 times a day, didn't matter, but to do it each time. And if there was a time that I couldn't manage to do it, that I would at least go and kneel there and take a few seconds just to simply say, I'm not going to be able to do this today. To hold that marker both physically and mentally in that space. There's several other examples that came to mind. One is, I remember when I moved into an apartment in San Francisco. It was actually just one room off of a garage in a basement back when I was I guess a junior or a senior in college. I moved in, and that the next day I went out down to Z Gallery, and I bought some posters and put them up, and went to IKEA and got a little desk and a little bed and a little nightstand and whatnot. And it was kind of my first purely private space that I had on my own. And, I remember going, and my friend Mike Lindy at that time, I invited him over to see my new space. I was all excited about. And he came in and he looked around and he was like, it's all right. And I was like, what do you mean it's all right? And he said, well, anybody could live here. He said, that's not your bed. It's just a bed from IKEA. And, the posters from Z Gallery. I mean, so what? You liked them, but they're not you. They're not a part of you. And it really made an impression on me. When he left, I actually returned all that stuff, and I decided that I would only hang things on my wall that people had made for me, or that I had made myself. And I also built all of my own furniture at that time. And I wasn't a carpenter. I just built cubes that I could stack together and make a bed, and stack together and make a desk. And the space took on a whole different meaning for me. It makes a home a home. It gives a depth to things. And I was reading here this marvelous story about a monk in Tibet. His name's Hua Chi. And it says that every day before sunrise, Hua Chi arrives at the temple steps, places his feet in his footprints, and beds down to pray a few thousand times before walking around the temple. The footprints are now 1.2 inches deep, where the balls of his feet have pressed into the wood, but the years are beginning to make their own mark on his body. During the first years, I would pray 2,000 or 3,000 times every single day. But I have grown older, so in recent years I have only done around 1,000 each day, he said, adding sheepishly that he could sometimes only manage around 500 in the cold of the winter. Hua's devotion has not gone unnoticed by younger monks at the temple, which lies in the Rongwo Gonchan Gompa Tongren's main Tibetan monastery. The monastery, which dates from 1301, is home to hundreds of youngsters studying Buddhist scriptures. 29-year-old Genden Jarji says he spent many days admiring Hua's efforts before finding the courage to step into the footprints. As he carefully repeats Hua's movements, the young monk says he plans to carry out the ritual when the older monk stops. Every day I come here, and every day I look at the piece of wood, and it has inspired me to continue to make the footprints myself. Just a beautiful testament to what a great life can inspire, and how a good deed or a loving deed or a deed of devotion carries on through the generations. I was looking through some photos and found a picture of St. Peter's statue in the Basilica of St. Peter in Rome, and to see that the toes have been worn off, stone toes, on this statue have been worn almost completely off by being just simply touched over maybe centuries of people paying their respects to St. Peter. Imbue what you do with that sense of devotion, that sense of commitment, whether it's a piece of art like this drawing of a Capricorn. You know, the closer you look, you see the meticulous amount of effort that went into creating it. You know, an investment of time, of focus, and effort makes things holy, makes things beautiful. I remember cleaning up in the Hollywood Temple one of the old monk's belongings after he had passed away in the archives, and finding this giant trunk full of papers. And I pulled them out, and there were stacks, thousands and thousands and thousands of sheets of paper in this thing. And when I pulled them out and looked at them, they were the name of God hand-typed on an old typewriter over and over and over and over and over again, thousands of times. The feeling that came over me, the sense of what that represented, his practice, his hours, and that combined with the fact that he was finished. His work was done, his life was over, made a very profound impression on me. Think about your spaces, think about your investments, think about your life. Are you meticulously, painstakingly investing yourself in your practice, in your relationships, in everything that you do with a sense of worship? That's the essence of karma yoga, this being absolutely present, being absolutely focused in the moment and doing everything that you do out of that. Think about your spaces, think about your investments, think about your life. Are you meticulously, painstakingly investing yourself in your practice, in your relationships, in everything that you do with a sense of worship? That's the essence of karma yoga, this being absolutely present, being absolutely focused in the moment and doing everything that you do out of that sense of devotion, out of that sense of worship, whether it's to just your higher self or your own ideal or your chosen ideal in a Buddha or a Jesus or the personal God. It's up to you. Make your life holy. Imbue your space with a sense of the sacred, and find that your life becomes richer, your character becomes deeper, and your sense of being more firmly established. Sense of devotion out of that sense of worship, whether it's to just your higher self or your own ideal or your chosen ideal in a Buddha or a Jesus or the personal God. Make your life holy. Imbue your space with a sense of the sacred, and find that your life becomes richer, your character becomes deeper, and your sense of being more firmly established.